The day I fell off the ladder, I was fixing a floodlight above our garage. It was one of those small, mundane things that you tell yourself can wait until the weekend, until your wife reminds you for the fifth time, and suddenly it can't. I remember the way my foot slipped, the sharp crunch of bones meeting concrete, and the sound of my own voice screaming before everything turned black. I woke up in a hospital bed with pins in my leg, a fractured wrist, and a spine injury that was going to require at least 3 surgeries and months of recovery. The nurse told me I'd been lucky. I didn't feel lucky. I felt like someone had hit pause on my life and dropped me into a body that didn't feel like mine anymore. I remember thinking that Rachel would be there by the time I fully came to. She wasn't. Rachel and I had been married for almost 7 years. She had 2 daughters from a previous marriage, Hannah and Grace, and I had no kids of my own. When we met, I was smitten fast. She had a fire about her, this unfiltered way of speaking that made everyone else fade into the background. Our relationship wasn't perfect, whose is, but I thought we had something solid. We shared Spotify playlists and weekend rituals. Sunday pancakes. Her laugh. I held on to those things. When the nurse asked if I wanted her to call my emergency contact, I said no. Rachel already knew. I'd managed to call her from the ambulance, groggy from the pain and adrenaline. I remember her voice sounding distant. "Oh God, again?" she had muttered, like I'd done this on purpose. I thought maybe she was just in shock. Day 1 passed. No visit. I figured she was overwhelmed, 2 teens at home, her graphic design work, and now this. Day 2, still nothing. When I called, she said, "I'll try to come tomorrow, but I'm slammed. The girls have back-to-school stuff." I told her it was okay, that I understood, but I didn't. By day 4, even the nurses noticed. One of them, Maya, brought me an extra apple juice every morning and told me about her dog just to distract me. I asked her once, offhandedly, if family visits usually took longer to start. She gave me that look, the kind that tells you she's seen this story before. Rachel finally answered my call on the 5th night. I was lying there with a catheter, my spine stiff, and a new bandage where a screw had been inserted into my hip. She sounded annoyed. "You're calling again?" I said I missed her, that I just needed to hear her voice. She sighed like I'd asked her to climb Everest barefoot. "You always make everything a crisis, Liam," she snapped. "It's just a fall." I had a moment right then. A silence inside me so loud it muffled everything else. After that, I stopped calling. 2 weeks in, I'd been transferred to a step-down unit. My left leg was basically useless, and I needed assistance getting in and out of bed. I had started physical therapy, if you could call lifting your own leg 2 inches therapy. The nurses cheered me on like I was running a marathon. It was humiliating and weirdly touching. Still no visit. Grace, the younger one, sent me a text once. "Mom says hi." That was it. Not even an emoji. Maya brought me a paper cup of weak coffee and sat with me during her lunch break. She didn't ask about Rachel. I think she knew by then. The staff all did. I was the man with no visitors. The one they pitted. Week 3. My brother Michael drove in from 4 hours away. He brought a bag of beef jerky, a giant Gatorade, and a stupid card with a dog in a wheelchair that said, "Hang in there." He tried not to bring up Rachel, but it hovered between us like a third presence in the room. When he left, he hugged me a little too long. Later that night, I tried to call her again. She didn't pick up. I don't know what possessed me to check our joint account. Maybe it was boredom. Maybe it was dread. I had Rachel's online banking info because we'd always shared everything, passwords, pins, trust. Or at least I thought we did. In 3 weeks, nearly $9,000 had been withdrawn. ATM transactions mostly, some in places I didn't recognize. I saw charges for a spa in Denver, a wine bar in some town I didn't even know she knew, a clothing boutique that specialized in curated luxury loungewear. Rachel worked from home. She wore sweatpants and my old band tees. The weirdest part? There was also a $1,300 charge to a car rental service. We owned 2 cars. I stared at the line item for a full minute before I realized what it probably meant. That night, Maya caught me staring at the wall. She asked if I wanted company. I said no. She nodded and left without another word. I felt something cave in my chest after she walked away. I was trying so hard not to put the puzzle pieces together, but they were snapping into place whether I wanted them to or not. At 2:12 a.m., I called Rachel one last time, just to hear what she'd say. She answered on the 3rd ring. "You better be dying," she said. I didn't respond. "Hello?" Then came a sound in the background. A man's voice. Low. Close. Rachel hissed into the phone. You seriously couldn't wait until morning? I hung up, and something in me changed. Not the way you slam a door. Not even the way you burn a bridge. More like the quiet realization that the house you were trying to fix has already been condemned. I didn't sleep the rest of the night. Just lay there, staring at the 4 bag dripping above me, replaying every moment I could remember, looking for clues. The next morning, I told the doctor I wanted to start walking again. I didn't care how much it hurt. I needed out. Out of the hospital. Out of that marriage. Out of the lie I'd been living in for too damn long. The first time I tried to walk again, it felt like my spine was snapping in half. The physical therapist, a guy named Julian with too much energy for 8 a.m., kept telling me to breathe through the pain. I wanted to punch him. Instead, I gripped the walker so tightly my knuckles turned bone white and shuffled forward like a man triple my age. Each step felt like I was dragging the weight of the last 7 years with me. The lies. The ignored calls. The voice in the background that didn't belong to me. Julian gave me a grin and said, "One step closer to freedom." He had no idea how right he was. By the end of that week, I could walk the full length of the hallway twice a day with only one break. They gave me a schedule. They gave me printouts. But all I cared about was building enough strength to leave on my terms. I didn't want to be stuck here when the truth came crashing down. And it was coming. I started documenting everything. Not just the charges and call logs, but memories. Odd little things I dismissed before, the hotel shampoo in her gym bag, the scent of a different cologne clinging to her hoodie, the way she started locking her phone a few months ago. All of it collected in a notes app titled, Exit Strategy. When my friend Caleb came to visit, bless his chaotic soul, he brought his old laptop. I asked if I could borrow it. Said mine was at home. He didn't ask questions, just handed it over with a granola bar wedged in the side pocket. I made a new email. I created new logins. I started moving my paychecks to a different account. I called a legal firm and scheduled a consultation for the following week. A lawyer named Celine agreed to come to the hospital, no questions asked. I told no one, not even Michael, especially not Rachel. The day before Celine arrived, Rachel finally texted. Not to check on me, not to say she missed me. She wrote, "Do you know where the Roku remote is?" That was the moment I knew for certain that our marriage wasn't just broken. It was a pile of ash in a windstorm. Celine showed up the next day wearing a black suit and Converse. Her energy was calm, surgical, but not unkind. She sat next to my hospital bed and listened as I laid everything out. She took notes, asked questions. She didn't flinch when I told her about the voice in the background of the call. When I mentioned the rental car, she paused. "That might be significant," she said. "Did she ever tell you she was traveling?" "Not once." "And you didn't authorize use of your joint funds for anything like that?" I let out a bitter laugh. She didn't even ask if I was alive. We went through everything. The accounts. The house. What we owned separately. What we bought together. Then she gave me a checklist. "Start thinking about where you want to go when you leave here," she said. "We're going to start making moves fast." It felt unreal. Like plotting a prison break while still hooked to 4 fluids. But I wasn't the only one making moves. 3 days later, something happened that knocked the wind out of me. I was lying in bed after physical therapy, too exhausted to move, when the nurse walked in with a delivery. It was a basket, wrapped in cellophane. From Rachel. There was no card. No apology. Just a collection of overpriced organic snacks and a candle labeled Morning Fog. I stared at it for a full 10 minutes. Then I threw it in the trash. That same evening, the hospital room phone rang. No one ever called on that line. I picked up, bracing myself. "Is this Liam?" a woman's voice asked. "Yes." "Who is this?" "This is Melina. I work with your wife." I froze. "She doesn't know I'm calling. But I thought you deserved to hear it from someone." My heart was racing now. "She's been seeing someone for over a year," Melina continued. "She told people at work you were an emotionally manipulative husband and that you refused therapy. That you were a..." "She what?" "She said you were suicidal. That you faked this accident for attention. But everyone knew she was lying. She came in after the fall with a new bracelet and said it was a gift from the universe." I said nothing. I couldn't. My mouth had gone dry. "I shouldn't be doing this," Melina whispered. "But she's been bragging about some guy. How she's going to finally have her freedom. She thinks you'll be stuck in that hospital for months and too weak to fight back." She hung up before I could say another word. I sat there, staring at the phone like it might ring again and undo what I just heard. Instead, I heard my own breath. Shaky. Angry. Hollow. So it was real. Not paranoia. Not worst case spiraling. She really had moved on, had replaced me before my body was even cold. And she was telling people that I faked it all. But that wasn't the twist that broke me. That came the next morning. Maya brought in my meds with a strange look on her face. She held up her tablet and showed me a photo from a neighborhood forum. Someone had posted a blurry shot of Rachel and a man leaning on the hood of a rental car, laughing, hands touching. The caption read, "Saw Rachel on her grieving lunch break. Her husband's still in the hospital, right?" My stomach dropped. Because the car? It had a company logo on the side. A landscaping business. The same one Rachel had hired 3 months ago. The man I'd hired to help trim our hedges was sleeping with my wife. And they were laughing. While I was learning to walk again. I didn't say a word to Maya. Just took my pills, sipped my water, and waited for her to leave. Then I reached for my phone. And I made a decision. I was done surviving. It was time to start taking back control. The hospital staff didn't want me to leave. They threw every reasonable argument at me. Risk of infection, incomplete spinal stabilization, number 24-hour support system. But Celine had already prepped me for all of it. She had connections, resources. By the time I signed the release papers, my brother had already rented a temporary apartment across town. 1 bedroom, elevator access, and space for a mobility chair. Not much, but it would be mine. And that meant something now. Rachel still thought I was in the hospital. I'd made sure of that. I'd texted from the hospital's Wi-Fi just the night before. Docs say I might need to stay another week. Pain's bad. Not sure when I'll be back. She responded with a thumbs-up emoji. Not a word. Not even a get well soon. Celine's voice echoed in my head every time I doubted myself. Don't make it personal. Make it legal. Quiet. Effective. And so began my version of her plan. The clean sweep. First step, bank separation. With Celine's help, I opened new accounts at a completely different bank and rerouted all my income streams. Second step, asset audit. Michael helped me catalog everything I'd paid for or owned outright before the marriage. Tools. Furniture. The car in my name. Even my old coin collection my grandfather left me, which Rachel had once called dusty junk. Third step, digital purge. I created new passwords, new email addresses, wiped my presence from our shared devices remotely. I removed myself from our family Netflix, Spotify, Amazon, everything. It felt petty, then liberating. The hardest part was Curtis, our dog. He wasn't officially mine. Rachel had adopted him before we met, but he'd followed me around every day since I moved in. If there was one thing that still connected me to that house, it was that dog. I didn't want to leave him behind. So I didn't. Michael pulled into our old driveway at 2:10 p.m. that Thursday. I stayed out of sight while he walked up and rang the bell. Rachel was gone, at work, probably grieving into mimosas with her landscaper. Grace opened the door, confused. Michael kept it casual. "Hey, just dropping something off for your mom. Is Curtis around?" Grace called for him, and when the dog came bounding toward the open door, tail wagging, Michael clicked the leash and guided him right to the car. The whole thing took 90 seconds. When Curtis saw me in the back seat, his whimper turned into a high-pitched yelp. He licked my face, my neck, my broken hand, anything he could reach. We drove away. No one chased us. That night, I sat in my new apartment, surrounded by boxes and silence, and let Curtis curl up against my side like a warm weight tethering me to something that felt real. Celine had already drafted the paperwork. Divorce. Asset division. We weren't playing for blood, just for fairness. She said Rachel would either lawyer up and fight, costing her time and money, or she'd cave under the weight of her own deception. But I wasn't ready to serve her yet. Not until the next step was complete. Step 4, proof. I needed undeniable, photographic, time-stamped evidence of the affair. Not just rumors or credit card statements. Something that would make any judge side-eye her when she claimed half the assets. So I called Caleb. "You want me to what?" he asked. "Don't think of it as stalking," I said. "Think of it as surveillance with purpose." "Same thing, man. Please." A sigh. Then, "Fine. But I want Curtis for a weekend when this is all over." "Deal." Caleb installed a trail cam across the street from the house, disguised as part of a bird feeder. Motion triggered. High resolution. Night vision. The whole 9 yards. Over the next 10 days, he sent me dozens of stills. Rachel coming home late. Rachel leaving in dresses I'd never seen. Rachel hugging the landscaper in our driveway, his hand on the small of her back like they'd done it 100 times. And finally, one perfect shot. The two of them kissing under the porch light. She was holding a bottle of champagne. He was holding my lawn trimmer. Caleb captioned it. Love blossoms in aisle 3 of Home Depot. I sent the photos to Celine. That's more than enough, she said. Ready for the final push? I nodded. Good. Because Rachel's about to learn what it feels like to lose something she never appreciated. I sent the papers by courier. Signature required. They arrived on a Wednesday afternoon. 40 minutes later, Rachel called me for the first time in 2 weeks. You're serving me now? While I'm taking care of everything alone. While you're, what? Pretending to be helpless. Pretending. I said, evenly. You mean like faking an accident to get attention? Silence. You talked to someone, she said finally. I talked to everyone, I replied. She started crying. Or pretending to. I couldn't tell anymore. I didn't know how to be what you needed. I'm sorry it happened this way. Don't be sorry it happened this way, I said. Be sorry you treated me like I was disposable. She asked if we could talk. In person. To make sense of it. I told her she could talk to my lawyer. That Friday, Caleb helped me move the rest of my stuff. Only the things that were legally mine. Furniture, electronics, books, and a few framed photos I couldn't quite throw away yet. I left the wedding album behind. Rachel didn't call again. But Grace did. She messaged me late that night, just 3 words. Are you okay? I didn't respond right away. I stared at the screen for a long time, wondering what she knew, what she believed. Then I wrote back. I will be. And I meant it. Curtis adjusted faster than I did. Within a week, he'd claimed the window nook in the living room as his permanent sunbathing zone and had figured out the precise second I stirred each morning. I, on the other hand, moved through the apartment like a guest in a stranger's life. Nothing quite fit yet. My body, my thoughts, or the idea that I didn't owe my time, love, or forgiveness to anyone anymore. Celine said Rachel hadn't responded to the divorce papers. That's good, she told me over the phone. The longer she ignores them, the more leverage we have. But ignoring wasn't the same as surrendering. And I could feel something shifting. The silence wasn't peace. It was the crackle in the air before a thunderstorm. Then, out of nowhere, Grace asked if she could see me. I hadn't expected it. Not after the months of radio silence, not after her flat, "Mom says hi" message while I was lying in a hospital bed, unable to wipe my own damn face. But her message this time was different. Direct. No filters. I need to talk. Just us. Please. She met me in the parking lot of a bakery halfway between my place and hers. I watched her climb out of her mom's car too thin, arms crossed tight over her chest, as if the world had become one giant offense. She was 17 now. Just barely. But she walked with the caution of someone who'd already learned to flinch before being hit. We sat outside. I offered her a croissant. She refused. Don't need carbs, she mumbled. After a few minutes of small talk about school and Curtis, she finally looked me dead in the eye. I know you think I hated you. I didn't. I waited. I was mad. Not at you, at everything. My dad's a deadbeat. Mom's always talking shit about everyone. You were just the easy target. I didn't expect anything from you, I said, honestly. I know. That's what made it worse. And then she pulled out her phone. I think you should see this. She handed it to me, screen unlocked, a string of text messages open between her and Rachel. At first, I didn't understand what I was looking at. Messages about schedules, curfews, grocery lists. Then one stuck out. A bubble from Rachel, timestamped 2 days after I'd been released from the hospital. If he's dumb enough to sign everything over to me, we won't have to worry about anything. Just play nice until I get control of the account. My chest went cold. There were others. Don't let him know about the new car. He'll flip. If he asks about Jack, just say he's a client. You'll get your college money. Just stop looking at me like that. Grace took the phone back and locked it, like she was afraid I'd drop it. She's been different since the accident. Meaner. Drinking more. Paranoid. She started checking my texts and grounding me for nothing. Then the guy, the landscaper? Jack? He dumped her, I think. I overheard them fighting on the phone. He called her toxic. She threw a plate at the wall after. I leaned back, trying to breathe through the feeling that I was standing on a shaking dock, watching the boat I used to live on sink with every new word. She used me to keep you close, Grace said quietly. And I let her. I stared at her. At the girl I'd helped raise, coached through math tests, carried from the couch to bed when she'd fallen asleep watching movies. I want to live with you, she said suddenly. The words were so sharp and fast that I thought I'd misheard. I'm not safe there anymore. Not in the way that matters. She doesn't hit me or anything. But she's not a mom anymore. She's a mess with a wine glass and a lighter who forgets to buy groceries. I blinked. Grace, I'm not even your stepdad anymore. I know, but I trust you more than I've ever trusted her. I didn't say yes. Not right away. I told her I'd talk to Celine, that there were legal things. Boundaries. I had to think. But even as I said those words, I already knew. I would make room. I would do whatever I had to. I wasn't her father, but I was something. And something was a hell of a lot more than what she had now. That night, I told Celine everything. She went quiet for a full minute, then asked me to forward screenshots. If we can prove emotional instability, minor neglect, and fraud, we can petition for a guardianship shift, she said. You may not be blood, but you've got history. That's more than enough. 2 days later, Rachel showed up at my apartment building. I didn't open the door, but I watched from the peephole as she stood there with a paper bag in one hand, her makeup smudged, her hair unwashed. She looked like grief wearing perfume. Liam, she called through the door. I messed up. I know. Just talk to me. Please. I'm alone. Jack's gone. Grace won't talk to me. I can't breathe. I didn't respond. Curtis sat beside me, silent, his ears tilted forward. After a minute, she slid the bag under the door and walked away. Inside, a photo of us on our wedding day, curled at the edges. A key, and a single line, scrawled in shaky handwriting across the back of an old envelope. I would have come if you'd asked again. I lit it on fire in the sink. Not out of anger, not out of revenge, but because I couldn't afford the weight of that lie anymore. The past was ashes. The future was calling me by a different name, now. 3 weeks after Rachel's visit to my apartment, the petition for temporary guardianship of Grace was approved. The court moved faster than I expected. Celine said it was because of the text evidence and the sworn affidavit from Grace's school counselor. Apparently, teachers had been worried for a while. Late homework, zoning out, wearing the same hoodie for a week straight. Rachel didn't even contest it. She didn't show up to the hearing. Just sent a terse email through her attorney stating she did not object to the temporary arrangement but reserved the right to revisit custody when her circumstances stabilized. Celine called it a win. I called it telling. The first night Grace stayed over, we ordered burgers and watched that dumb cooking show where professional chefs try to recreate fast food. She barely spoke for the first 30 minutes. Just picked at her fries and nodded when I asked if she wanted a drink. Curtis curled up at her feet like he remembered her shoes. When she finally spoke, it wasn't what I expected. Do you think people are born bad, or they turn into it? I didn't have an answer. Still don't. But I said the only thing I could. I think pain makes people choose. Some run, some bleed, some build armor and forget how to take it off. She didn't say anything for a while. Just looked down at her burger like it had the answers. Eventually, she said, I think I want to go by Gracie again. I nodded. Then Gracie it is. By the following week, she had a toothbrush on my bathroom counter and her favorite oversized hoodie hanging on the back of the kitchen chair. She offered to help with groceries, unpacked her school books on the coffee table, and found an old radio station she liked that played 90s grunge at night. One evening, I found her playing fetch with Curtis in the hallway, giggling in a way I hadn't heard since long before my accident. And in that moment, I knew I'd made the right decision. I didn't save her. She saved herself. I just left the door open. As for Rachel, the fallout came quietly. Her reputation at work soured after more coworkers started connecting the dots. Suspicious expenses, skipped meetings, sudden mood swings. She stopped posting on social media altogether. Gracie said she barely left her room anymore. Sometimes drank herself to sleep with a bottle in hand and a candle burning on the windowsill. I thought I'd feel triumphant watching her spiral. I didn't. All I felt was distance. Like she belonged to a story I used to read when I wouldn't pick up again. Michael came by every other weekend, bringing board games and impossible jigsaw puzzles. He and Gracie got along better than I imagined. She called him Uncle Mike, without irony after only 3 visits. Caleb still made jokes about charging me for private investigation services, but I caught him watching Gracie with this kind of older brother protectiveness whenever we all hung out. He never said anything, but I could tell the way he kept a hand on her shoulder, steady and quiet, like she was something worth anchoring. And then there was Sadie. I met her at the community center where Celine had dragged me to attend a legal literacy workshop for caregivers. I wasn't even paying attention when she sat down next to me, flipping through the same bland pamphlet about tenants' rights. She nudged me mid-slide and whispered, "You look like you just found out taxes were real." I smiled. A real one. The kind that starts in your chest before it hits your mouth. We started talking. Then we kept talking. She worked nights at a mental health clinic, had 2 cats, and a terrible track record with assembling IKEA furniture. She was also divorced. Not bitter. Not broken. Just open in a way I wasn't used to. Our first date was coffee. Then ramen. Then a Saturday flea market where she bought me a dumb keychain shaped like a chicken nugget because I said once I used to live off them in college. I told her about my injury. The divorce. The mess. I expected her to flinch. She didn't. Just said, "So you've already done your hard part." That's good. I didn't fall for her instantly, but I started believing that maybe I could. And that was enough. The divorce finalized exactly 148 days after I left the hospital. I marked the date on my calendar not to celebrate it, but to remind myself of how much could change in 5 months. Curtis turned 8 that same week. We threw him a party hats, treats, even a weird dog cake Gracie found online. Sadie came, brought her cats and carriers so they could judge from a safe distance. Caleb came. Michael too. We sang a dumb song and Curtis barked right in the middle of it. Gracie laughed so hard she dropped the camera. I laughed with her. Not the hollow kind. Not the performative kind. The kind that fills a room. Later that night, while washing dishes, I looked around the apartment. Still small. Still not fully decorated. But filled with something I hadn't expected to find again. Not revenge. Not closure. Peace. A framed photo sat on the windowsill. Not of me and Rachel. Of Gracie and Curtis, covered in flour, making cookies that looked like abstract sculptures. I never posted updates about the divorce online. Never told the full story to anyone outside of our tight circle. People sometimes ask if I regret not going public. If I should have exposed her. But the truth is, I didn't need to. Rachel will live with her choices. I'm too busy living with mine. And for the first time in years, they're finally the right ones.